Zak Brown has taken yet another dig at Red Bull, and it seems like the team principal and CEO of McLaren F1 isn't willing to let go of the Austrian Grand Prix aftermath that saw his driver retire the car due to the extensive damage to the car. While the entire grid has unanimously agreed to move on from this racing accident, Brown has had a lot to say about how Horner reacted on the radio, putting the integrity of the Austrian team in serious question. But is there truth behind his statements, and is Brown slowly but surely turning himself into one of the most hated people on the grid with his constant hatred towards Red Bull? It goes without saying that one of the biggest what-ifs happened in Austria a couple of weeks ago, with Verstappen and Norris coming too close to each other and the Brit ending his race prematurely due to the terminal damage that the car has had. On the other hand, Verstappen lost the lead due to the puncture and was able to drive to the pits safely and finish P5, further extending the lead in the Drivers' Championship because Leclerc was nowhere to be found in the points. What Zack Brown was very furious about is how the team reacted on the radio with Verstappen, adding fuel to the fire that Red Bull are seriously scared of the three-time world champion and are not willing to put the blame to his name even when there's a serious need to do so. Verstappen didn't apologise for not leaving enough space for Norris, and even the McLaren driver spoke about this incident with a cooler head before the Silverstone Grand Prix, saying that he and Max talked and there's nothing to be sorry about as it was just hard racing. Verstappen was also penalised 10 seconds by the stewards, a penalty that Brown believes is a bit like a slap on the wrist because other drivers have received much more for much less, which has been further fueled up by the FIA's admission that they should have given Verstappen the black and white flag before the incident as he constantly moved under braking. When talking about this situation to a greater extent, Zak Brown went on to say, "It seems to be that Red Bull is scared of Max. We're very honest with our drivers. If nobody tells him that what Verstappen did wasn't within the regulations, why should he think otherwise?" But to have Christian Horner come on the radio and actually squarely point the problem at Lando, who are you kidding? Everybody has seen it. The regulations are very clear. You've got to leave a car's width, and Verstappen didn't. Why did Horner have to say anything? It just felt wholly inappropriate. There's a solid argument that Brown has made with his statement, however. With this entire situation gone in the past and with no further action taken on this matter, picking up old wounds doesn't seem to do any good to his driver or to the sport in general. We've seen that numerous times throughout the 2024 season, Brown hasn't been shying away from his shots taken at Red Bull, the team that seems to be the biggest nemesis in this season now that Ferrari has dropped the ball and Mercedes became competitive all of a sudden. However, to say that you're very honest with your drivers and treat Ricciardo the way you did back in 2021, as well as fire a driver from IndyCar right after he signed a new deal and right before the race, isn't really boding well for you as a team. Therefore, one can help but wonder whether Brown should look more into the performance of his own team and the strategies that have been botched on numerous occasions. Canada and Silverstone being two of the most painful ones recently, where Norris would have been much closer to Verstappen had it gone right in the pit wall of the Woking-based squad. Brown was also questioned as to why he keeps throwing these digs towards Horner, and the answer of the team principal of McLaren was very much political. He does it with everyone else. But now it looks like he has more issues with Horner than anybody else. Furthermore, he added, "I speak up on issues. It just seems I have more issues with Christian than others, because he says and does stuff I think is wrong. It's less about getting under each other's skin and fighting because we're not competing with them during the cost cap episode. I just feel the integrity of the cost cap was critical for the success of Formula 1, and if it wasn't taken seriously, the sport would have been damaged forever." We must not forget that Brown was the team principal who spoke the loudest apart from Wolff in terms of what type of penalty Red Bull should receive from the FIA, as Brown went on to the extent of writing a private letter to the FIA Governor Ben Sulayem. It's evident that these off-track battles do have the potential to ruin the integrity of the team if they do let a lot of it enter into the internal circles. And as the old saying goes, a boat cannot sink in the middle of the ocean if the water doesn't get inside of it. Therefore, Red Bull cannot succumb to this pressure if they've just happened to act like it doesn't exist in the first place. But with the internal power struggle in Red Bull and the departure of Newey, Brown has also stated that the entire place looks like a pretty toxic environment that saw a lot of CVs flying towards his team. This is yet another dig that he's taken towards Horner's team, and when talking about it in a greater extent, Zak Brown went on to say, "Red Bull is a pretty toxic environment right now. Newey's departure is an important one because I think a lot of people at Red Bull started working with him. I already mentioned that there were resumes circulating. That happens all the time, but you see a higher level of discomfort. I also think that in the future it will be more difficult with sponsors because they're going to examine carefully what they are associated with, and that is a very tricky situation. When you have Brown and Red Bull, you just can't run out of information, because it does look like Zak is more willing to throw shots at the Austrian team than focusing on what's the most important thing for his team right now: both of the championships. This has been pointed out by the majority of the media and by Horner himself, who went on to criticize McLaren as to how the team bottled the strategy and ruined an opportunity not only to win the race, but to finish ahead of Verstappen and maybe even come closer to the three-time world champion in the Drivers' Championship. Still, Brown is now focused a lot on what's going on the internal power struggle with Red Bull, and has also opened up on the Verstappen drama too. Further adding, you have the whole Verstappen drama. Is he staying or is he leaving? Max has a contract, only his father is pretty outspoken. Red Bull is a great racing team, but it is destabilized. You can see that Newey is leaving. However, you can never erase them, and as I said, they are an incredible team. Just by my reasoning, they are not as strong as they used to be. If I look at who was the best path of visibility and momentum right now, it's Ferrari and McLaren. But then again, you have Brown openly discussing with Red Bull when it comes to having his team supplied with Red Bull powertrain, which is kind of ironic, even though it's probably the best move to go to if you want to declare more independence from Mercedes. Be that as it may, McLaren are ultimately going to remain a customer team, and as such, their chances of being the best on the grid will always be hindered a bit. Although in this situation the team has everything they need in order to win races. It's the strategy and the excuses that are sucking them dry of points that could prove to be crucial in both championships at the end of the year. This is something that Lando Norris has spoken about, as the Brit may have thrown a shot towards his team principal that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed inside of McLaren before they can go on and proclaim themselves as championship contenders. Adding to this extent, Norris said, "I know it's a podium in Silverstone, but I'm fed up of just saying I should have done better, I should have done this, I should have done that, or whatever. I don't care if it takes time. I don't want it to take time. I should be doing it now. We should be winning now, and I should be making better decisions than what I'm making. I'm just disappointed. It's a win. It's a win in Formula 1, and I'm not going to settle for something less when we should have achieved it." All of this goes to show that McLaren still has a lot of room to grow. But with these latest shots towards Red Bull, it does look like the team has gained something. The departure from Newey and the connection that the Brits mastermind made with the working base squad. It's evident that McLaren and Aston Martin are now the clear favourites to land the 65-year-old in their camp, and if they do so, it would be a massive boost, not only for 2025, but for the new regulations as well. With all of this in mind, what do you think about Zak Brown's remarks towards Christian Horner? And more importantly, do you think that there's an opportunity for McLaren to win any of the two championships this year? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.